and welcome to Chapter 8, Testing and Experimenting with New Ideas of the Entrepreneurship Textbook, 3rd edition. So what are experiments? What are they and why do we do them? One of the biggest things that when you're starting a business is that you need to experiment as much as you can in a small quantity before you expand. I remember the one story about many years ago. I was taking this golf course lessons, these golf lessons, and one of the instructors had started a business, expanded a business, and created this device for golfers who were training to work on their swing. And he created this product where they would put this thing on behind their knees to make sure that they were leveled at the level that they needed to swing a golf club. He thought that this was going to work. He thought that this device, that people all over America who were trying to learn golf were actually, or people who wanted to better their swing, were going to wear this device behind their knee. Lo and behold, he found out that nobody really wanted this product. The only real place that wanted the product was in Japan. So he was stuck in a warehouse with boxes and boxes full of this device for your knee, so you can bend it to swing. I tell this story to tell you that before you go and mass produce a certain product, you need to experiment with a small quantity of population first to get market validation. If your experiment works with a small group, there may be potential that it's going to grow bigger. Look at Facebook. When Facebook first started, it started on college campuses, Harvard University, and expanded to many other universities before it finally went to the general public. Because before Facebook, when it first started out, you needed a college, an EDU email. And so after it was successful there, then of course it expanded to almost anyone, and now it's big. So even the biggest companies in the world today had to experiment first to see. Right? Experiments lets you answer the question to determine whether or not something is of validity, someone's going to buy it. There are different types of experiments, right? It goes into efforts, and of course, to tell you whether or not there's some truth to what you're doing. Another one, of course, there's some interviews, right? You can interview people. Now that is costly. It's going to be very time consuming to interview people. But if you can interview 10 complete strangers and ask them questions and get their insight, that's going to be really helpful for you. You can do some wireframe. You can go online, and there's a bunch of websites out there where you can wireframe an app, wireframe a website before you actually go and create it to get to see if someone's going to actually like it. Advertise, right? You can do small advertisements and see if whether or not there's validity. Of course, you can see buttons nowhere. That's basically where you use clicks on the feature and nothing happens to test whether or not people will engage with it. So the more clicks you get on it, the more likely they're going to want it. Create a landing page with call to action. So you can create a landing page of a webinar or a book, an ebook, and then you can see what the call to action is, and see if people will download it or click on it, or whatever you decide what the call to action is. And of course, or watch someone else use your product. You could give it to somebody and see how they would do it. You can prototype your product. This is one of the biggest things I tell you. If you remember from my example I said earlier, you need to prototype your product first. Years ago, when I was one of my startups, I created these T-shirts to see if there would be any market validation and people would actually buy them. I just bought a box of T-shirts. I think it was like 20 or 30 T-shirts to see if people would even like these T-shirts. And I only sold like maybe 2 T-shirts, and I had to give out the rest because no one really cared for them. So that saved me a ton of money, because the last thing I could have done is bought boxes and boxes full of T-shirts and with nobody wanting them. Of course, you could do live product and business. So again, launching your product and seeing if people will like it, and having, of course, some experimentation with it. A deeper look at prototypes. So again, a prototype can range from a sketch all the way to actually a high realistic model. You can pay people to create your prototype for you to see if people will like it. And it really, because you want to see how people interact with it. Like if you're going to create a clothing company, you can create prototype T-shirts and see what people are going to react to it. It's not that expensive, or there's plenty of companies out there who will do T-shirts for you just to see what the reaction will be. Of course, low fidelity prototypes. You have rapid prototypes, which is, quickly create models to visualize a product. Again, or like for example, a storyboard. Mock-up prototype is basically a model that looks like the finished product, but it's not functioned. You could do mock-up prototypes with a 3D printer if you wanted to. And role playing, right? It helps you step in the shoes of the user by creating their emotional experience by testing the product. Uh, Continuing on with low fidelity prototypes, user driven prototypes requires the user to create the prototype and understand how they're using it. In a storyboard, of course, you can go online and create a storyboard. That's just a drawing of how the product will look like and how it's interacted with. And of course, and then I said you could do some pretty 3D printing prototype. You can find organizations or companies out there who actually do the 3D printing for you. Now, high fidelity prototypes, you can do the minimum viable product and MVP. So it's a version of the new product that allows your team to collect that information or pilot experiment, do a small scale study conducted to assess the validity of your service. One of the important things about with storyboarding, it really compiles your thoughts into one document. And of course, it's to communicate it. That is what the main thing about it is. And of course, it visually solves the problem with pictures, right? People actually see what it's like to visually see your product. The scientific method applied to entrepreneurship. It's testing is not just about gathering data. It's more than it's more than just that. It's like you want to see the interaction and to see whether or not your original assumptions about your target market are true or not. Of course, the 6 steps of the scientific method, right? Identify a question, right? Ask lots of questions to find a specific one. Gather the background information. Have the information that you need. Form a hypothesis. Without a clear hypothesis, you can't really. It really doesn't help how you can find new solutions. Test a hypothesis and run experiments. Analyze your results after you've gathered all that, and of course form a conclusion as to what happened with your hypothesis and what can you tell about it, whether or not you should learn from it. Like, do we continue with this prototype or do we not continue with this if you see interaction or not with the product. Of course, what is a hypothesis? Does it pass, fail? Who are the participants, and how many participants do you need? Again, it's not that easy to find participants who are going to answer your questions for 30, 40 minutes. So you may have to do something for them, may buy them food or compensate them for their time. I've been involved where, a company was doing a prototype of a textbook or something, and I would be compensated with a gift card for my time. Hey, can you take 30 minutes to sit with us and talk with us? We'll compensate you. We'll give you a $25 or $50 gift card. And that's what you may have to do. Again, how are you getting participants? Are there random strangers from somewhere? So, and of course, how long is that interaction going to last? Again, customer engagement is very important to see how your product interacts. One of the biggest customer engagements and provides immediate feedback is when you go to networking events and you tell someone about your business venture. Hey, I created this digital marketing company and I do blah, 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 blah. You can see their interaction and whether or not they actually have a care for it and whether or not people are interested in your product. Just asking, again, complete strangers, you get that immediate feedback. I would say getting feedback from at least 10 complete strangers or even maybe 20 complete strangers is going to be able to tell you whether or not your product has validity or what you need to do to fix it. Again, those short-term engagements is really helpful to get that feedback. Again, feedback interviews is one of the most you get that feedback useful in conjunction with experiments because you get that information on why people are interacting with your product. Again, use the prototype, determine the value for the user and what they're going to do for it. And of course, draft an introduction and ask open-ended questions. Open-ended questions is not a yes or no. Like, do you like this product? Yes, no. That's not an open-ended question. You can say, what do you see with this product? Or what would you use this product for? How would you interact with this product? So that way, you get to get a lot of information instead of yes or no. Again, curiosity, it's the important trait for many entrepreneurs. Of course, having curiosity helps you understand what the product is. And of course, the 5 dimensional models of curiosity: deprivation, sensitivity, joyness, exploration, social curiosity, stress tolerance, thrill seeking. Again, how to stay curious, connect with other people, focus on learning, ask questions, and broaden your network. And of course, gather your own evidence is an important part of the entrepreneurship method. Without evidence collection, many people make decisions based on intuition and experience alone, which is not great. Just because you have experience or have an intuition, it is not always the greatest answer. When I started one of my startups, Oye Help Me, which was a college tool resource for young Hispanics, I thought because of my experience and because of my intuition that this company was going to be successful. Lo and behold, the market said otherwise. So again, don't rely just on your experience alone or what your intuition. You have to collect evidence. You have to see people interact with your product or service. And of course, decision making can be affected by unconscious bias. Again, the tendency to make unfair judgment decisions toward a certain person or group. On deeply ingrained thought patterns, interpretations that are outside of your conscious awareness. So, of course, the other type is confirmation bias, which is a type of unconscious bias that can influence how we make decisions and make us think our ideas are wonderful when maybe they are not. So, again, just because someone tells you it's great one time or one person tells you that doesn't mean that everyone's going to agree with you on that. And so, of course, again, have successful A/B testing, experiment all the time as much as you can. And that brings us to this end of the chapter for chapter 8, testing and experimenting with new ideas.